Yeah, welcome in. Welcome back to another episode of the Format Podcast. Got a pretty good show for you here today. Going to talk some newly minted NBA Finals MVP Nikola Jokic and his outlook on basketball. But before we get to that, you know what time it is. If you're here on YouTube and you haven't already, please go ahead, click that subscribe, that like, and that notification bell so you can be made aware anytime new content drops on the channel. If you want the audio only version of the podcast, open up your audio podcast platform, hit the search bar, type in the Format Podcast. Please, if you like the content, make sure you give us that 5-star review. Share the podcast with everybody you know, enemies, friends, family, whoever, sports fans, non-sports fans, whatever it is, man. Just share the pod with them. Have them have a listen, especially sports fans you know that might want to hear a little bit of breath of fresh air in terms of takes on sports and not just the same stuff you generally hear regurgitated all the time. You know what happens when you do these things. We rise in the algorithm, helps us find more sports fans, helps more sports fans find us. Now let's get right to it. Yep. Okay, so Nikola Jokic, he's an interesting guy, right? And I think part of that is, although he speaks English well, a lot of times when a language is your second language, you may lack confidence in speaking it in terms of idiomatic expression and really the general fluency. You may not always come across as well as you would like to, and that limits what you will attempt to say. For instance, I speak French, not quite fluently, but conversationally pretty well enough to be understood and understand, not like broken either. Solid grasp. Anyway, but there are a lot of things that I lack because I don't live in a Francophone country, and so I lack fluency. So I can make myself understood. I can understand fairly well, but it's not the same grasp that I would have if I spent an extended amount of time in a country where that was the primary language. And so I think this is what you kind of get with Jokic. And the reason I say that is his teammates, they say he's a funny guy. They say he's personable, but to the media and to the general public that listens to when Jokic talks, you don't get a lot of feeling for his personality. Also, his facial expressions are pretty bland. He doesn't seem like a particularly outgoing guy. So you don't see a lot of personality from him. And so we don't really know what he's like as a person, right? And I bring all this up because after winning the championship, he was kind of asked some of his thoughts on winning it. And one of the things that really stood out to me was that he said basketball is not the main thing in his life. Let's go ahead, listen to that real quick, and then we'll come right back.
You're the Finals MVP. How close do you feel like you are to your personal peak, to the best player that you can possibly be?
I really don't know. I think I can be much better, but you need to still sacrifice yourself. But basketball is not the main thing in my life. It's something that I'm good at. I'm just happy that as a team.
So Jokic says that basketball is not the main thing in his life. And I kind of respect that, but here's my thoughts on it, right? When you talk about the all-time great NBA players, like the all-time guys, now, you talk about your Michael Jordans and your Magic Johnsons and your Larry Birds and, in my estimation, to a slightly lower level, LeBron James, your Isaiah Thomases, these guys, the Kobe Bryants, of course. These are the guys that come to mind as assassins and killers and the all-time great players. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar is he is one of the all-time great players, but not quite thought of in the same way as an assassin and a killer, just because his position was different in terms of when the game was played, et cetera. And, he had a lot of other things going on in his life. So I bring all this stuff up because Jokic says that basketball is not the main thing in his life. And clearly, even if it's not, he's been able to have a tremendous amount of success. He's a two-time MVP. He's now a champion. He's a Finals MVP. He has gotten progressively better throughout his years in the NBA. And that's realistically what you look for in a player, right? This is what you look for, the hard work to develop and to get over the hump and to be that guy. Totally get it. But the Magic Johnsons and the Michael Jordans, like I mentioned, the Larry Birds, the Isaiah Thomases, the Kobe Bryants, to a lesser extent, LeBron James, those guys, basketball was everything. And when we say basketball is everything, that doesn't mean that you can't have interests or a life outside of the game, but you understand what comes first. One thing I will say about LeBron, he has a saying he likes to use: keep the main thing the main thing. I think he very much understands that basketball is the vessel or the vehicle which has allowed him to be able to do all the other things in life which he enjoys and loves doing, whether it's his business pursuits or his personal things or his family things, right? And so I look at this. When Michael Jordan kept losing in the playoffs to the Pistons, he went back and he kept getting better. Like, he understood. Everyone would tell you, like, this dude was psychomaniacal in practice. And that's what makes guys great. We've heard the stories about Kobe Bryant, the constant work. No matter how early he tried to get to the gym, Kobe was already there. And he wasn't just there, he was there already fully lathered up in a full dripping sweat workout. Now, Isaiah Thomas, he will tell you how when he threw away the ball in the 87 playoffs, Eastern Conference, against Larry Bird and the Celtics, how he went home and didn't want to take phone calls, didn't want to come out of his room, none of that. And it was the great Bill Russell who called him and said, young man, you know, you're going to make mistakes. You got to get back up from that mistake now. And that's what helped him. But the pain was so great from the losing and you know, making that mistake. You talk about the great Pat Riley, one of the greatest people in NBA history. We mentioned on an earlier podcast that Pat Riley was a guy who 25% of all NBA finals he's been involved in, whether as a coach, an executive, or a player, right? So we know Pat Riley's an NBA lifer, and he once said there's winning and there's misery, right? We know about Isaiah Thomas talking about when he lost the finals in '88 against the Lakers, how for 3 days he didn't bathe, he didn't get out of his uniform, he didn't come out, you know, he was just that miserable. Magic Johnson, nicknamed Tragic Johnson for his late game snafus at the end of games in the 1984 finals against the Boston Celtics, where they couldn't get over the hump and finally beat the Celtics in the finals, right? All these guys, when they lose, it's like the end of the world. And that's not to say that, again, you can't have interests outside of the game, because you can, but these guys understood that this was everything to them. The love of the game, the competitiveness, the fire, the desire, all that is what made them as great as they were and put them on that pantheon. All that, of course, natural ability too, but the drive to be better than the other guy, the drive to win at all costs, that's what made them great. They understood that. Larry Bird, the legends of him shooting 500, 1,000 jump shots every day, always trying to get better. What's Magic doing? Magic. What's Bird doing? All these guys trying to get better, competing against each other, even when no one was looking, when they're running drills in the gym, when they're shooting jump shots, when they're watching film, trying to get better. What are these guys doing? It's life. It's an obsession. It's a compulsion. That's what made them great. The Kobe stories, 40-mile bike rides out into the desert before games, the insane drive to be in better condition, to make shots that no one else can make, to score points no one else can score, to know that nobody's going to be able to guard you, and when the time comes, you'll be able to make that shot. The fanaticism, right? That doesn't mean you don't love your family. That doesn't mean you don't love God if you believe in such things. That doesn't mean that. But that means you understand that you were blessed with a gift that most people are not. And if you want to truly maximize it, if you want to be what you can be, if you want to be at the top, if you want to be a Mount Everest guy, or do everything you can to be a Mount Everest guy, whether you make it there or not, it has to be life. It has to be, right? That is what made these guys so great. And I find it so interesting that Jokic is saying, well, you know, basketball isn't the main thing in life. And we get it. You love your family, you love your horses, whatever it is, you love, your Serbian village, and all that is cool. But I don't know. I don't know how much he works at his game, at his craft. Clearly he works at it, because he was 10 points a game as a rookie, and now he's a 2-time MVP and a Finals MVP and one of the best bigs in the league. I think it's not ridiculous to now say he's the best big in the league. Some people are saying he's the best player in the league. Okay. He just had a tremendous run, but is he going to be all-time great without that psychomaniacal obsession? I really don't know, because the guys that are on that list, they all had it. They used to say about Isaiah, he'll stab you in the heart to win a basketball game. Like, that's not normal. You know what I mean? That obsession with greatness and with winning, that's not normal. And so all these things, I think these are what separates those all-timers from the guys who are just great, and even from Hall of Famers. The maniacal drive and obsession to win, get better at all costs, to live it, breathe it, sleep it. That's those guys. And so I thought it was interesting that Jokic said that basketball wasn't the main thing in his life. I just wanted to come on here and give some thoughts about that. But what I want to know from you is, do you think that to be one of those all-timers that you should have that mentality that basketball is everything? Or do you think it's okay to think that basketball isn't the main thing in life? Obviously within reason. We all love our families, and if you're a believer in God, you love God. But do you think it's okay to think that way? Where do you think Jokic is going to end up all time? Do you think he can ever reach those levels without having that same level of obsession? Leave your comments in the comment section. Can't wait to hear them. Can't wait to read them. Can't wait to respond to them. And I'll be back with you next episode. And I'm out. Peace.